Okay, great. Thank you everybody for coming. Today we are showcasing students from across the university that are engaged with exciting.
Hang on 1 second, sorry. Oh, no, continue. Sorry.
Cool. We're showcasing students who are engaged in exciting work happening across campus and in our region. At a time when there's a lot that we can identify that's not working. The stories that we're going to hear about today, the students that we're going to be featuring, the programs and faculty leaders that are creating this spaces for student engagement, like this is meaningful, important, and impactful work that is directly serving Massachusetts in important ways. We're a state university, we have a deep commitment to our state and to its citizens, and that's embedded in the way that we hire people, and the students that are attracted to this university, and really the mission and spirit we all hold in this space. And so at a time when things are really busy and stressful, we really appreciate you all being here. And for me, I've been really looking forward to this day all semester because it's a reminder of like what is working and where we should put our energy to do important work. So I'm not going to say anything else. I don't really like to talk. We're going to pass it over to the students, and the way that it's going to work today is we're going to showcase some of our students that are working in labs and in offices across campus. Is it working? Yep. Perfect. And these students are pursuing undergraduate degrees, master's degrees, PhDs, in colleges across campus. We have 4 or more colleges represented here. We have students at the undergrad level, we have students at the master's level, and we have students at the PhD level. You don't often see them together. Why are they here together? Because we think that this network requires all of us and that we need all levels of engagement and we need leadership training at every step of the way. So if you hear anything that you're excited about today and you're a student, I think you should be thinking about, are these places that I could work, places I can come in and to activate my ideas? And if you are a faculty or a partner and you're wondering, how do I get connected with talented students like this, reach out. Every single semester, we place students. Every summer, students go out into the workforce, both in our region and across campus, working on projects. And every single opportunity you pick up a project is an opportunity to bring a student in. So we really want you to be thinking in that way. And we hope that as you hear these stories today, that you imagine yourself being part of future conversations. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Lena, who is going to introduce our first student.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. Morning. Happy Thursday. It's a beautiful, wintry, late fall day. It is my honor and pleasure to introduce Roisin Kirby. Roisin, I just discovered, started at UMass in 2014, which is the same time I started as faculty, which I had not realized that synergy together. She started in an associate's program in the Stockbridge School of Agriculture, moved on to the Masters of Sustainability Science program, has continued on now in the Social Justice Education program, and it has been my honor and pleasure of working with her through the Climate Literacy Project here in the School of Earth and Sustainability for the past several years now. I have to say, Roisin is one of the most heart-centered and student-centered teachers that I've ever had the pleasure of working with. And it has been one of my great honors and pleasures to get to work as extensively as we have together on the Climate Literacy Project, which you'll hear a lot more about today, but where we're bringing in climate justice and climate science to develop a interactive pedagogy, intentional, student-centered, contemplative pedagogy, hands-on, interactive. I just, with my least articulate self in these last minute of words, but it's been an honor to sort of delve in to try to figure out how to engage students' hearts while teaching about climate literacy. And Roisin is a master of this art. So with no further ado, I introduce Roisin.
I didn't expect to get emotional off the bat. Lena, give it up for Lena. Thank you, Lena. So my name is Roisin. I'm here to talk about the Climate Literacy Training Program here at UMass. I'm going to be going over a little bit of the history and an overview of the training, I'm going to talk about some of the educational materials that we have within the training, some findings. I'll talk more about that later. We partnered with ACER this semester, so I'll go over the findings from that assessment. And then I'll be talking about the very cool, fun, and exciting plug and play model we're going to be implementing next semester. So this is a little bit of a history and an overview just to orient you to where the climate literacy program lives within the work. So number one, we're a part of the School of Earth and Sustainability. Number two, we are connected to the UMass Carbon Zero program here at UMass, which is a mission for a clean energy transition within the university. This is a living lab project and has always been a living lab project where different students throughout time of the climate literacy program existing have partnered with faculty and staff to co-create at the curriculum level. This curriculum that is supporting students in gaining knowledge on climate change, climate solutions, climate justice. So like I said, this is co-created in community. We are not only co-creating curriculum together as like a staff faculty, student faculty team, but we're also working with content experts across campus to inform the resources that we're sharing with our students. There's a theme of community like woven throughout the creation and implementation of this training as our hope. And what I believe that we've done successfully is creating a community of a cohort of climate literate students. This is our second semester doing it, with many more semesters to come. And so this is an overview of our training. Right now, this iteration of the out-of-class training is about 9 hours in total. We have 3 sessions, about 3 hours each. With this semester, we had 1 hour of asynchronous work that we had our students doing. I'm going to talk about our process goals because process is just as important as the content when we're thinking about how we're learning and what we're learning. So our goal is to form a learning community. We have a student-centered pedagogy, and I'll talk more about that when we talk about the type of activities that we're doing with our students. We center hope and empowerment through everything that we do. Talking about climate change is hard. Talking about climate solutions is hard. Talking about justice is hard. We want to center hope whenever we're talking about it and studying it with our students. And through, this is a place-based training. It's not only created in community, but it's a place for students to also go and learn about what resources are immediately available to them on campus. Our session topics, we have 3 different topics so far. Our first session is an introduction to the content itself and to each other, like who's in the room with us as we're learning. Our second session is on climate justice, and then our third session is on climate science and solutions. This is our cohort from this semester. Some of these people are in the room with us right now. Oh, my heart's so full. So these are the students that I'm talking about when these are like who's on my mind in my heart when I'm talking about this training this semester. So I wanted to bring them into this presentation today. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about our educational materials that we use within the training. We have 3 major educational materials. Our slide decks are one learning resource that we use with our students. We also have a resource guide that we use, that we share with our students to offer them different educational materials that are woven throughout the training so they can have access to them, but also additional resources like places to go to on campus that are focused in sustainability. It's a couple pages long and we're like growing it as we go. It's a living document. And lastly, we have a handout that our students use while they're in the training as a place for note-taking, but also, well, this is the resource guide. I'll show you. This is just like a snapshot of it. It's many pages long, so I just snapshot the top bit of it. And then this is a segment of our handout. So like I said, part of the handout is where students can take notes throughout the training. We love a little hand-on note-taking, you know. But we also use this model called the spheres of influence. This is adapted from Teaching for Diversity and Social Justice. And this is like seminal within social justice education, thinking about where we can make change within our own lives. So the idea is as students are going through this training, they're learning science, they're learning climate justice, they're learning climate solutions, and they're thinking about different areas within their own lives where they can implement these solutions. So this is like the scaffolding to like, how can you make change after taking part in this training? So this semester and last semester as well, we partnered with ACER, which is the Assessment Survey and Effectiveness Research group on campus. They are fantastic. Shout out to Gabrielle. We've been working together all semester. So this is just like a very like bird's eye view of our findings from the semester. We had 15 participants ranging from a selection of these colleges on campus. These are the colleges we were able to connect with hopes to connect with more colleges in the future. And we had our students fill out a pre-assessment and a post-assessment survey. We had 100% survey participation, which I'm very proud of. Yeah, right, shout out to the students. And we offered a focus group towards the end of the semester. That was like an informal way in which to connect with the students, because it's one thing to have your students fill out a survey, right? Which is a great way to collect data, but then it's another thing to like meet in community and like have paper and markers and like the whiteboard, and we go out for dinner and we like talk about the questions that are on the survey as well. So we had a very like a small intimate group there, but very potent conversation. And these are some of the findings from that were in the ACER post-assessment survey responses, but were also echoed within our focus group. And some of the strengths of the climate literacy training shared by our students is that there's a range of activities, right? Speaking to this like student-centered pedagogy that we had a goal of implementing in the survey, or into the training, sorry. A mix of group work, some solo work, and some like, I have lecturing on here. It's like mini lecturettes that we were doing. Educational materials, the slides were complementary to the resource guide, were complementary to the handout. Community building was like through and through within the training, and our students noticed that. We always offered our students food as well. We had dinner together while we were engaging in the training. And then, so the students offered some changes to the climate literacy training as well. They loved it and they wanted more. They didn't want to be sitting in a classroom for as long as we were, which I agree 3 hours is a long time, but they want a longer time frame of the training with shorter sessions. They want to expand the depth of the content that we're going into. And they had suggestions of like different ways in which we could expand the content, different content areas to dig into. And there was like a strong desire of a hands-on collaborative activity within the local community implemented into the training as well, which I thought was fantastic. So now I'm going to be talking about the plug and play, which is what we're going to be implementing next semester. And within the plug and play model, up here on my screen, I'm going to have the format, the content, the delivery, and engagement, but I'm going to be talking about it with you as well. So with the plug and play model, the goal is that we're incorporating the climate literacy training into different classroom experiences or like student groups. It could be wherever students are gathering on campus. And we're going to retrofit an element of the training to then deliver in your classroom or student group, whichever that we would be partnering with. So we have, like I said before, we have climate justice, we have climate science, we have climate solutions. We can take elements of that, work with either the facilitator, the educator, the instructor, and then retrofit within like a 45-ish time block to bring that element of the training into the classroom. We are going to continue like implementing it in a student-centered way, a hands-on way, offering like relevant and interesting sustainability-centered resources for our students. And like through and through, like our goal is for this to be like a meaningful learning experience where students are able to like this is all about climate literacy. So like deepening your skill set related to climate literacy. What is climate change? What is climate solutions? What is climate justice? What can I do about it? And gaining the confidence to be talking about those like really hard topics with one another within the classroom. Pause. Okay, we're good. We got it. So these are 3 topics. We're offering it as like a menu. We're going to be implementing it next semester. So we could come to your classroom and talk about scientific principles of climate change. What is climate science at a very like basic level, but we could deepen it as well or expand it as well. Social justice. What is the intersection of social justice and climate change? How is climate change a social justice issue? And then climate solutions. What are scalable real world solutions that students can implement, thinking back to that spheres of influence, like what can they do as a student on campus, can they do in their work life, in their school life, and how can they take part in climate solutions on a larger scale as well outside of UMass. So like I said, hope is hugely important when we're thinking about talking about climate change with our students. So I have a quote on hope that I'm going to share with you just before I wrap up really quick. So join me as I read this, or settle in as I read this. Hope is a state of mind, not of the world. Hope in this deep and powerful sense is not the same as joy that things are going well, or willingness to invest in enterprises that are obviously heading for success, but rather an ability to work for something because it is good. Ask us how I can get involved. Thank you.
Okay, great. So we have time for a few questions before we move on to the next student, if there are any like immediate questions that we need to ask in this moment. Yes.
The climate literacy training, I think you said this semester you had 15 students. At your current resources, how many could you serve without scale, like without changing?
So if I'm facilitating, I like to keep it to like 15, 20, because then it supports like an intimate learning experience. But if I was co-facilitating with someone, we could slightly expand that. But I think that part of it is being part of it is like keeping it intimate and community focused. Yeah, is my goal.
So follow-up is just at the 15, were you hoping for 18 or 21, or that was like a perfect?
I was hoping for 20, and I think students like they sign up and they're like, oh, you know, can I balance this? You know, yeah, it's less, right?
Yes.
It's less. That's on the other hand, yes.
Yeah, so I love the sphere of influence. I think we should be talking about that more with our students, just in general, about their lives and executive function and being a person in the world. And one of the things that I've often reflected on for myself is the pros and cons of keeping local versus extending beyond that. So when you talk about different spheres, do you talk about pros and cons and trade-offs?
So I don't necessarily frame it as pros and cons, but I have this conversation with students like regularly of like, what's better? Do I do things at the local level or do I do things on a larger scale? And I think like the beauty of working in sustainability and thinking about climate itself is that when we're getting involved in different things, like we're all going to play a different role. And I like the spheres of influence model because it can get students thinking about what's within their immediate reach. So I try to support a conversation where we're thinking about how they could potentially do like something on the day-to-day, you know, saving water within their immediate circle, or like introducing them to different ways they can get involved in like local policy as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Yes.
It's a simple question. Can you give us a sense of the time that the modules would take? So we invite you to our class and we say, we want to do the social justice module. What am I carving out of a class that day?
I would give it like, to support the community building aspect of it, I'd give it like 45 to 50 minutes.
Okay, like a class, really.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, okay.
It depends like on how long your class is. And,
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Great question. Practical.
But we would talk together beforehand, of course. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? No. I forgot a slide, which is my gratitude slide, which I'd love to just like share really quickly from my heart, which is shout out to everyone within the School of Earth and Sustainability, staff and faculty that supported this whole endeavor. Shout out to all of the content experts that I have met with over the past year, formally and informally, to like gain knowledge on different resources on campus. And lastly, shout out to all the students who have participated in the training so far. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, great. Next, I'm going to invite up Marjorie Rubright, who's with the Renaissance Center. Her and Liz Fox, who are both with us today, host students that Marjorie will tell us more about. They're over in the College of Humanities and Fine Arts, and I think it's a really great example of how the sciences and arts fit together. So help me.
You up here that you can grab later. First, am I in a, okay.
You're here, it's very convenient.
Okay, I'm just going to talk to you. You're here. My name is Marjorie Rubright, and I direct the Kinney Center for Interdisciplinary Renaissance Studies, which may not immediately, intuitively seem like an entity that might be in this room. But what we have done there, with the courage of many students who have made their way to us, is launched a program we call Renaissance of the Earth. And Renaissance of the Earth is a collaborative research project that takes interdisciplinarity really seriously to bring together communities to ask the question, what might the early moderns, that is 500 years ago, living in a food scarcity and a little ice age moment, what might they know that we could borrow to think about more hopeful, sustainable futures? If you have not been to the Renaissance Center, it's actually 28 acres of a living laboratory outside. We have meadows, kestrel habitats, an outdoor stage, a kitchen garden, etc. And inside we have a rare book collection where our major agenda for acquisitions is about early earth science and ideas about the earth from early modernity. So I want to thank Darcy for bringing us all together. I want to thank Liz Fox, waves your hands, because if you ever come there, this is the person you will always see. And we have two of our creative and courageous students with us today. The first I will introduce is Bo Kim. Okay, so hi, Bo. So Bo is our Renaissance of the Earth Fellow at the Kinney Center. And I should say, these are little handouts for you about this project. Our next application for fellows is in January. Please take a look, renaissanceoftheearth.com. Bo Kim is a third-year MFA candidate in studio art. Yes, good. As an artist researcher, which is a really great pairing that she puts together, Bo is exploring the intersections of ecological memory, participatory art, archival inquiry, and Korean diasporic practices. Her work addresses climate grief and collective repair. Today, she will be sharing with you how transhistorical agrarian knowledge enlivens us to new models of sustainability. So thanks, Bo, for all your energy and what you're doing.
Thank you. Hey, so should I go here?
Either way.
Either way. So thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. And being here, and I especially want to thank you, Darcy and Marjorie and Liz, for inviting me, and also SS team for organizing this showcase. It's all kind of my real honor to share how my Renaissance of the Earth fellowship at the Kinney Center has shaped my research and artistic practice. And my project's title, Grafting as Method, Art Repair, the Archive. I'm also a visual artist working at the intersection of the drawing, archives, and ecological thinkings. So during this fellowship, I've been using the Kinney Center's rare books and kind of a huge collection to how early modern idea about the land, labor, and impairment still shape how we think about the climate extraction and repair today. So I will briefly share how the art kind of Renaissance archive has pushed my artwork forward, and then how it connects to tool, community, and engagement and future material experiments in my studio art. So it began this fellowship with a kind of simple but urgent question: how can ancient tools speak to contemporary art? Like crisis, what story of repair, care, and survival do they still hold? So I moved deeply into the archive. One word kept returning to me, and grafting. So grafting, lots of meaning that behind that is the earth grafting joint two plants so they grow together without becoming the same. In the medicine, grafting kind of heals by attaching new tissues to wounded skin. But in my art, kind of grafting means that through this drawing, remaking and cutting and layering and transforming, grafting becomes a way of thinking with our materials. So grafting is not only a kind of horticulture techniques. It becomes a framework for repair, a way to join histories and culture and ecological knowledge so they can survive together without erasing differences. So I'm gonna share my kind of reference that I kind of excavated from the Kinney Center Rare Book Collection. So I'm focusing on the early modern English agriculture texts such as Layson's New Orchard Garden in 1648 and Blyth, the English Improver improved 1649. So I brought two kind of figures. So when you close looking, that's kind of the manual designed to teach how lands could be improved. In many engraving, well-dressed landlord owners stand at the corner, overseeing grafted, planted, and perfectly ordered garden, surrounded by tools of planning, measurements, and control. So nature's re-render ornamental and displaying the domesticated. In other imagery, that right side of figure 2 is kind of a nature is kind of a huge, like a landed, like labor reduced forest into the grid of stumped and numbering and categorizing the land like a data. And the earth becomes a surface to be organized and optimized and wounded. Over the time, I realized that these books were not neutral instructional guides. Their kind of function as a tool of the ecological governance and connect improvement to dominance and shape early narrative ownership and extraction and imperial authority. So one of the most meaningful places in this fellowship has been my field notes. So I brought my field notes, so later I'm going to share to you. And it's kind of a place where research and drawing meets. As I review land management manual and early agriculture trustees, I noticed that tools within them were designed for control, not care. So the book themselves, however, reveals another form of the repair, pages, method, and mandated binding, reinforced fragments reattached. So as an artist researcher, I begin to understand my own practice as a form of the repair as well. So on this slide, last imagery that show the rare book conservation at the Kinney Center, torn seed rejoined, kind of weakness the fibers and strengths the past damage carefully torn, and think about how this page is missing and this kind of original kind of whole books that how we still missing, but the Kinney Center has a kind of conserve and how kind of rejoin. So I rethink about what they mean of repair, and kind of a right side of image the page from my field notes doing my research every like a single week, and kind of research how visual artists research form of that. So I can transcribe passages from the agriculture manual side and respond through redrawing on the others. When I copied this woodcut of grafting by hands, it no longer felt like a reproduction. Instead, it becomes interpretation, a way to unlearn colonial gaze embedded in original images and to open space for listening rather than improving. Here, text and image are literally grafted together. So the notebook become a living a site where archives, bodies, and material coverage a small ecological of its own, where artistic practice and research repair on the other real time. So each time Liz plot the rare books and I just observe. And each time this is my artistic responded how look like. So each time like read the books and observing book itself is a very artistic object. So I learned the grafting as not only the scientific method, but also how artistic lens to kind of look at the art book. So this is that right side. So I also experimented lots of different art materials, how I'm gonna show my kind of observation with my strengths, the artistic way. So as I move deeper into archives, my research expanded into a large question: how do different cultures imagine repairing the land? And where do their story meet? So only modern English manual images repair through control, planning, measuring, improving. But when I turn into Korean Humi small plow, using the communal farming, the framework shifted the Humi embedded memory, shared labor, and interdependence. So with the land rather than mastery over it. So my installation, Humi to a station, bring these two worldview into dialogue. 3D printed Humi to show regional variation, tutoring, drawing, translate agriculture movement into the mark making, and participatory station invite viewer to draw with the tool themselves. Here, crafting become not just metaphor, but method, joining, and worldview without erasing differences. So, and when viewer participant, they become part of that repair. Participant become healing, their presence graft into kind of work. So my research continued to ask, what would it mean to repair land rather than reshape it? How might artistic practice and archival research model care instead of control? Working with these agricultural texts has shown me how deeply idea of improvement and mastery are embedded in environmental history. This work challenges dominant narratives, and as an artist researcher, I invite viewers to consider the long history system fear ecological harm today. And at the same time, I encourage viewers to kind of recognize that even with the archive, the size shaped by kind of power, there may be model for the repair. Looking ahead, I'm developing work with a SCOBY. It's a bacterial microcellulars grown through the fermentation. Maybe people know about kind of a SCOBY, maybe have a kombucha, maybe so very jellish, these things. So as our living alternative to animal-based kind of parchment historically used in the book making, its skin like a surface echoes the rare book that once copied the imperial contour. So by the drawing on these members and grafting into the mulberry tree paper, I join kind of microbiome and human archival and how can Eastern and West life and decay through repair rather than extraction. So my vision is to kind of transform into an archive from the record of dominance into a site of ecological and cultural healing, and one graft and one page and one touch at a time. So thanks so much for listening. I welcome your thoughts and continue to imagine together what repair, ecological culture and material might look like.
We have a few minutes for questions. If anyone wanted to pose a question now before the end. And if anyone needs, we know that it's a busy time, so if people needed to pop out now, it's totally fine.
This is, I mean, part question, but also just observation. I think it would be interesting to think about repair in conversation with discussions on restoration. How is repair similar to or different from restoration? Are you trying to get back to repair and restore to get to some past, or is it some ongoing continual evolution?
Yeah.
And then also with resilience, what's the relationship between repair and resilience? And that, you know, those comments are really about your second question, because that those you know, sort of terms and discussions are very active in you know, interdisciplinary sustainability areas.
I think time is like we are very separate, present, past, or future, but it's strong divided, but my perspective is very non-linear. Everything is coherence, and at the same time, even though live in the 21st century, but I feel like it's influenced by the future in kind of past. So I always like think about how my vision of the present moment should kind of re-escape how we attach, how we healing or repair, so that how the past also become a present and future is so much complexity and much like a more than 3 or 4 dimension as an artist view. So kind of think about when you draw 2D drawing, but we make 3D looks like using the value shadow to make illusion, right? So how kind of artistic perspective make people really reshape of the or repair of the perspective to look at the present and past and future. So that's why I think a very important intersection and interdisciplinary study how we thinking of it out of the box. So that's why like a repair means like a many means, but I don't wanna really stop the scientific or each different discipline, how bring here is this table to think about influence each other. Yeah, so.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's more than a start, number 2 there.
Thank you.
Okay, next I'd like to invite up Lori Simmons and Ezra Small.
Yeah.
Switch it together. It'll be fine.
Hi, everybody.
I'm Lori Simmons. I'm the Assistant Campus Sustainability Manager here at UMass.
And I'm Ezra Small, I'm the Campus Sustainability Manager here. We both work in facilities management together in our sustainability office, team of 2.
So we're like the operational side of sustainability.
Can you talk a little bit about your Sustainability Fellows program and why it's amazing?
So we oversee a few programs. So one is the Sustainability Fellowship Program, where we have students come in for academic credit and they work on real campus sustainability projects. And one of those projects was developing a business manual and operation manual for a thrift store.
Yeah, so I'll give a little background of New to You, and then I'll let Lori introduce our wonderful students. So for those of you who may be new to You, this is a program that's really been a staple waste reduction, zero waste program on the campus for over 10 years. So New to You started as an idea from the student fellows, a cohort of student fellows about 10, 11 years ago, where they saw what was happening during move out, right? Where all the waste was generated during move out, and they researched other schools and what other schools are doing, specifically University of New Hampshire, and found Post Landfill Action Network that came out of that campus, and how they were empowering students to shift the culture of move out to zero waste and reuse. So we started New to You small, and we grew it over the next 4 or 5 years. And now all of the residential areas are collecting waste during move out and then organizing and cleaning and then reselling those items back at a tag sale in the fall. So we have, those are our really big events that we have during spring, and then when students come back in the fall, we just had our 10th annual New to You tag sale, and historically the revenue from that tag sale has supported other sustainability initiatives on campus, but now in the past few years we've transitioned to becoming a revenue generating operation within facilities management, where in last February, we've opened our thrift store in Hamden Common. So we now have a year-round zero waste solution for the campus community and beyond. And as Darcy noted, at the beginning of the event, it became really important for our campus community to have this resource. And to quote Britt, who stopped by and donated one day, after the Olympia Place fire, noted that, when we were set up by the administration, it was decided we were going to serve as the central donation center for the campus and for the community, to serve the students that were displaced and lost everything. Britt came in and said, you guys are demonstrating right now that sustainability builds community resilience. And so I think we've demonstrated that. Most importantly, we've been able to help students, but I think it's also been really a great moment for us to show that. And I'm super grateful for our team, for Lori, and for our student team who were literally there managing volunteers before I even got off the phone with the administration, deciding that we were going to do this. So I'll let Lori introduce the students.
Yeah. So it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Ava Bergloff and Maitri Chandrasekhar, who have been with us for the past, since we opened. Ava started in the Sustainability Fellowship Program in our office as an intern and developed the thrift store manual. Like, how are we going to turn a move out, move in program into a thrift store? Like, what does that look like? How is everything going to work? And then we use that as a blueprint to launch the store. And Maitri has been with us since the store opened as our social media marketing coordinator. But really, they're a super dynamic team, and we couldn't be as successful as we are without their efforts. So, without further ado.
Like that just took out a whole chunk of our presentation. Got a lot of really great background info
Thunder,
there.
I'm sorry.
It was great.
Thunder I stole, I'm sorry.
It's perfect. Okay, so we're going to talk about sustaining a student-led business on campus. And yeah, we'll talk about kind of the experience that we've had with collaboration kind of being a really important, like being the biggest focus that we've had since turning this program into a thrift store, and how collaboration and community engagement is really a cornerstone of sustainability, especially with Rasheen. That's something you mentioned earlier today, like community engagement is really kind of like, it wouldn't exist without the community, and continues to thrive and exist and continue to reduce waste because of the engagement that we've had. So this is some stuff that Ezra already kind of dove into, but regarding the history, it started in 2014 and grew substantially over the following decade, and has over time diverted over 100,000 pounds of usable waste from landfills, and has been able to give that back to students. And in February 13th of this past year, we opened for the first time in our location in Hampton Commons after practically a decade-long fight for a permanent location on campus. And it's one of the biggest reasons why this was such an important shift is that it changed the approach from just a once yearly waste reduction program to a year-round one. So like last year before we opened, I called for donations from students moving out in December, because students graduate, students go abroad, it's like a kind of a pre-move out. So that was a really kind of really good example of how waste reduction is needed year-round, not just once a year.
Okay, so NewT's purpose is basically just trying to create a circular economy on campus, which is a really important thing. For example, I did a sustainable community development project in sophomore year, and we found that per student on average, we produce 600 pounds of waste each year. So it's really just like making it show that that waste is reusable and that we don't have to just throw it away to like the land of away. We can just put it back into our school, and it's actually like really good stuff, and like people can use it. And also we want to acknowledge that students do need affordable things, and as things like prices keep rising, we still need stuff. So the store also serves a place to get those things at a reasonable price.
So over this past year, we've already like learned a lot from this experience, and it's been like a huge learning experience, like a lot of takeaways, like academically and professionally. And especially in terms of the space itself, I really put a lot of focus when developing the thrift store into the culture of the space and the, like, for lack of a better term, essentially the vibe, the essence of the store itself. And I really consider it like my sacred space, and that's something that I kind of want it to be for other people. We try and keep it very clean, which can be hard to do in an abandoned building. I try to make it welcoming, and it's like trying to create kind of an environment where people can engage with the things around them. Some may kind of call it like an IKEA, a thrift store IKEA. You can interact with the space, you can sit down, you can test out like the kitchen supplies. It's all in a kitchen setup. There's a desk setup. We create a kind of a bed. We have like a mock dorm setup, so students can see how these secondhand materials can actually be used, instead of like, what am I going to do with this? Like, when I could just buy it at the store. It's like, this is how it could be used in your life, showing how you could be resourceful, which was another really big thing that we learned. Being resourceful, learning like if something that you have, and let's say you have something that you don't know what the purpose of it is, how else could it be used? Just because you don't know what its purpose is doesn't mean that it doesn't serve a function and can't be valuable in your life. Kind of goes off of the one man's trash is another man's treasure. Well, how can you find that everything could be treasure in a way? And then in terms of like other just like small things, learning about choice architecture, being very careful about how and where you place things, kind of earlier about like the IKEA thing, being very conscious of placement. For us, we really place emphasis on seasonality and trendiness as a retail operation. And that's been really fun, super successful. For Halloween, we did a whole bunch of, we like made our own costumes, kind of like Spirit Halloween, and out of completely secondhand clothes, and we made bags, priced everything. My team made a ton of collages and videos, and it was a huge success. Embracing the uniqueness of the space, resourcefulness, constant engagement and collaborations with clubs and organizations was something that we were really excited to tackle. Kind of getting not only as a method to advertise and market our program, but also like to enhance like the waste reduction initiative, because if we don't have that reach, we won't be able to advance our program and grow our program and continue to reduce waste and spread awareness about the importance of waste reduction on a campus as large as ours. And it's also been really fun to see how we can support these groups and support their missions as well. Like, for example, there's the LARP formal this Friday, and I brought them over to the store, and we are going to supply the entire formal with secondhand decor from New to You, trying to, show that you don't need to buy a whole bunch of really expensive things when what you have is right in front of you. And then you go on.
And to add off of that, though, there's a sustainable fashion show today, and we were able to supply those clothes to Massberg, which was really awesome. And just like things like that, it's just being collaborative. So I guess that goes into like the digital space of New to You. Be social on social media, which is kind of obvious, but like it really does mean it's more than views. It's just like humanizing our business, but also increasing our outreach to the greater community, not just students on UMass campus. So again, it's like about collaboration on posts, and also constantly updating people, because I think one of the main things that we've noticed is that like people really like open communication, believe it or not. And you know, you get so many questions and like the DMs, it's like, when are you guys open? What's happening? So it's just constantly making those posts and making sure that people are in the know, and it makes them feel like they're also a part of our team, which is really awesome. And that just goes with engaging our audience. So for example, we do a lot of photo dumps, and what a photo dump is just like taking pictures of just things that we're doing and things that seem fun to us, and just making like a slide of like slides of it all. And so on the left, you can see I'm giving temporary tattoos to my coworker, and that got 75 likes, whereas just like an informational post, even though they're really important, it got 11 likes.
But not reach, no good reach. People get bored with those.
Yeah.
It's necessary.
It's necessary, but what this means is like, it's not just about views, it's that people really like it when they can see that we're having fun, and that draws them in to our store, and just like, it just creates a community in the store. We're not just a retail business, we're like one big happy friend group. That's what I feel like.
Big happy family.
A big happy family.
Lori and Ezra is our mom and dad.
Yeah.
That's how I like to see it.
And on that same note, like having a united front, so we do like a lot of post collaborations, as we said, and that just means that it's posted on 2 accounts instead of just one, and those are getting so many more views, as you can see, like 102,000 views and 11,500 views. Again, it's not just about having views or getting views and like getting just like more follows. It's about showing students that different organizations all have the same goals and values, and that students can trust that like UMass and like UMass Sustain, we all are trying to work together, especially in such a polarized world right now. It's just really comforting to know that everyone is just, you know, trying to help out.
Actually, I'm gonna add a little side tangent, but one reason I was so excited to be part of the Sustainability Fellowship program last year was I really wanted to learn a lot more about the sustainability goals of UMass from the operational side, because as students, like, there's a very big divide between kind of faculty and staff knowledge and student knowledge in terms of what's going on campus. And there's a lot of rumors that go around, like, oh, like, did you, like, this is happening, that's happening, and you just kind of hear a lot of like really bizarre and kind of confusing stories about our sustainability initiatives and what we're actually doing versus what we say we're doing, and that there's greenwashing, and being able to kind of show and actively like present the sustainability initiatives on campus through this platform that has been able to grow substantially. It's like one of the most exciting things is being able to share what the campus is actively doing with their sustainability initiatives, from like hearing it from students and from staff, knowing that like, this is what we're doing, this is what's happening, this is how we're making change actively and with truth and with honesty and transparency to the best degree that we can. And I think that's something that students really, really value, which is another reason why we've been able to kind of make the impact that we have. So challenges from kind of since the beginning or last year, one thing that we have been battling with is staffing, because with such a small program, I mean, we've been able to do so much with what we have in our small 5-person team. Mo isn't here right now, he's at the store helping, he's great. But with the kind of the bandwidth of this campus and how large it is and how many students there are and how much waste, like Marjorie said, 600 pounds per student of waste per year, like there is an overwhelming magnitude of potential that this program could take on. And we were able to see that firsthand with the Olympia Place fires. And if it weren't for the volunteers that we've had, we wouldn't be able to function at the level that we are right now. In the last spring when we first opened, we had maybe 2 or 3 consistent volunteers, one of them being Maitrie's really good friend, who she would bring over, and like it was extremely helpful. And if it weren't for those who were so willing to help this year with everything going on, we wouldn't be able to do as much as we've had. So one thing like that we are looking forward to achieving in the future is more consistent, reliable staffing that can really help advance our operation, not just from a storefront perspective, but also behind the scenes as well. And again, space acquisition. So the building that we're currently in, Hamden, as I mentioned, was shut down for fire code reasons many years ago. I don't know how many of you guys know about the history, but it used to be a dining commons before Hampton Burke existed. It's kind of right in the middle. There was a bake shop. It was a art studio at one point that actually one of my professors used to teach in. And it's kind of been a little bit of everything in between. And now it's kind of a auxiliary services / dining storage unit. And with that, we've really been wanting to expand. We wanted to collaborate. Professional development closets across campus, the one in Eisenberg, wanted to work with us and kind of be a part of our space. But with all of the goals that we have, it's hard to be able to accommodate and create that kind of environment when we just simply do not have the space for it. We have our storefront right here. Our event space is back here. We want to host events and do things like that. We currently cannot because now it is the Olympia Place operation, but we used to have an event space. And recently we were given an additional temporary space to be able to create more of a shoppable experience, in addition to a room across the concourse of Southwest that is filled wall to wall with rolly bins of clothes that we haven't even looked through yet from the Olympia Place donations. And then we have Hampton, or the Hampton Gallery in the red boxes, and that's their office in the back. And as you can see, there's a lot more space. We only take up about half of this floor. And there are, I think, 3 floors in this building. Our goatee is downstairs, and I just think that there's so much more potential. And there is it's a beautiful building. One of the more, I think, beautiful brutalist structures on campus. And there's just being in the heart of the most dense residential area on campus, there's a lot of potential for revitalization. And it would be very exciting to see how that can change.
So then we became a centralized donation center for the Olympia fires. That happened in the span of like 3 days. It was a really quick turnaround where the first weekend it was awesome that a bunch of clubs and RSOs were really like getting together and like getting donations for immediate relief. But then the next day, admin reached out to us and basically we became that central donation center. And then November 11th, we created a voucher where it's $100 worth of items for all residents. And they basically get, along with free items from all the donations that we got, they also get a $100 voucher, which is only deducted if they buy stuff from our original storefront. So it's been really helpful, it looks like. I think a lot of students have been appreciating this effort. And yeah, now like you can see a few Olympia students still coming in and like getting gloves and backpacks because obviously everything was burnt. But yeah.
And kind of our test results were, as we've talked about, it's been very bittersweet in the sense that it stinks that this tragedy happened, but it's led to tremendous growth for this initiative, and it's been exciting to see. It really showed that UMass, like we were able to be so resilient as a community because of this physical location that we have. And like if it weren't for this operation, this sustainability operation, this secondhand operation, that we might not have been able to be as resilient as we are in this with this tragedy. If we didn't exist, it would kind of pose the question, how would there be relief? How would there be support for these students if this were to happen without UDU? And then other than like we've been able to provide a whole bunch of items, and like kind of I mentioned earlier, like if it wasn't for the support of the community, from donations to the sharing advertising, like you made a post that is I think our second biggest post on our Instagram account if it weren't for the volunteers, donations, advertising, like this, it wouldn't have been able to be what it is right now. And we wouldn't be able to support the hundreds of students that we've been able to. Last week, someone came into the store, wasn't someone in the Olympia fires, but she came up to me after purchasing her items and saying that they were so grateful for that, for the store, because they're international students and don't have a car, and they really wanted to show their appreciation. And it made me really happy to hear that, like, firsthand from them, not just like, I had been really focusing on Olympia students that sometimes, you forget about like the origins, like kind of from the origins of New to You itself was these international students, and being able to kind of see that we're still helping them is really, really awesome. And yet we've also been able to collaborate with a whole bunch of like people outside of UMass Amherst. We had people reach out from Dartmouth, from Springfield. Western Mass News came in for like 2 weeks and posted up with a camera and constantly filming and providing updates with everything. Our Instagram skyrocketed the 160,000 account views. We deepened connections with SGA. I recently spoke with Jacob Nevins about policy, and we had a really great conversation about sustainability initiatives going on. And it was a really enlightening conversation. And we've had over 290 volunteers that we mentioned earlier. And this picture, I'm pretty sure was like from like day 3 of donations. We had 4 bins posted up, these giant 5 Gaylord bins lined up, and it's constantly overflowing. There's things outside of the bins, and it's been really exciting to see all of the passion and support that the community has been putting into this program. And so our call to action, sorry, you went a little bit over, is what do you want to see in your ideal thrift store? And like I said, it's not just a thrift store, it's kind of an all-in-one place, that it's an all-in-one resource, it's an all-in-one community, it's our sacred space. So, yeah.
Great job. That was so much exciting information.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Sorry if I went a little bit over.
No, it's so perfect, but I'm gonna hold the questions on this one just so we can make sure we have time for everyone else. So if you want this here, and at the end, we're gonna have time for discussion.
I kind of blacked out after a little. Oh, sorry. That's good.
Okay, great, everyone. We have 2 more presentations, so we hope you'll stay with us. Next, I'm pleased to introduce Matt Lightgower. He's a mechanical engineering senior. He's a superstar on campus. His brain is naturally networked to think sustainability. So he really is, I think, a living, breathing version of the kind of students when we imagine who we want to bring to campus, who we want to support when we're here, and how do we want to support them as they move on. That's an ideal student for that. Super smart, traveled all over the world, but has really focused his time here. He's in his senior year, and he's really passionate about that intersection between the technology of engineering and thermodynamics, fluid dynamic solutions, whatever. And how we use that to use that to make great things happen. So I'm not going to talk any more about him because he's going to share that. But he is the SGA Sustainability Secretary. So for students that are interested, it's a formal role on campus through the Student Government Association. He can talk a little bit more about that, but this is one of the ways here at UMass that we really center sustainability, and we ensure that the change that's happening on campus is really guided at the leadership level with students. So please welcome me, Matt.
Darcy, I am very smart, so good observation. I'm just gonna rotate this so I can point at stuff. I got some gross equations coming up. So yeah, oh shoot. I'm Matt, like she said, senior mechanical engineer. And just something that I really wanted to focus on in my role as the Secretary of Sustainability is like the knowledge that I have in engineering. A lot of, not that this is a bad thing, but a lot of focus in the past is on like outreach and development and that sort of thing and raising awareness about sustainability. But I kind of feel confident that like
most people at UMass are aware that like climate change is a thing and it's something that we have to combat. So I wanted to step into this role, kind of test it out with like, okay, I understand the technical side of this. What can I bring in this position of power where I'm able to have influence on campus to actually physically bring down our carbon emissions? So that led us into my main project of the semester was improving the heating efficiency on campus. So anyone who's lived on campus probably knows that the dorms get really, really hot. Everyone opens their windows and that sucks. I don't know if anyone's moms yelled at them when they were kids about, opening the windows in the winter. Huge waste of energy. Because yeah, I mean, there's just like one central heating temperature. You can't change it in your room for the most part. Why is this bad? This is kind of a diagram of how the power on campus is set up. So we have the CHP, that's the central heating plant. It runs a generator on natural gas to produce electricity for the campus. And a lot of that waste heat from running the generator is put into steam, which gets circulated around campus. And that's how the heating works for many buildings. And this produces a lot of CO2 because they're running natural gas. Oh, forgot to mention heat losses from the open windows. That's the main thing that I want to reduce. So this is what I'm going to do. Just going to completely eliminate all of that. We're going to smile. It's going to be great. And our carbon emissions are going to drop. That's the gist of it. So how do I do this? I have to convince admin. I'm just some dude on campus. If I show up knocking on Reyes' door and say, hey, give me $100,000, he's probably going to say no. So I have to show the actual monetary cost that this causes every year. So this is a bit of a snapshot in time as like what's happening in an open window. So we're all familiar with hot air balloons. So you can kind of picture easily that like, yeah, hot air rises. That's because it's less dense than cold air. And so through an open window, this is like kind of what we have going on. We have hot air exiting the top and cool air coming in. And to picture what the air is doing, imagine if you have like a square fish tank and you just rip away the glass. What do you think the water's going to do? It's going to all just kind of flow out the bottom. So this is what's happening through an open window at any given point in time. And we have thousands of these around campus. So to figure out the cost, we have to figure out how much energy is exiting the window. So this lovely equation from Physics 2, my absolute favorite class, that's a lie. We have energy in joules on the left there. That's what we're looking for. Pretty easy equation. Don't get scared. There's a much scarier one coming. So then the way that you find what that energy is you take M, the mass of whatever it is you're looking at. Say it's like a pound of steel or whatever. Specific heat is just how much energy do you need to put into that mass to raise it 1 degree Celsius. And then you multiply by the temperature difference because if you're raising it 10, you have to multiply it by 10. That's what we're looking for. Because we're dealing with a fluid that's moving constantly, we're worried about how much of that is happening per second. So we have air coming into the room at some rate per second. That's getting heated to whatever the internal temperature is in the dorm, and then it's all getting blown out. So you can imagine cool air coming in, we're dumping all this energy into it, and then all that energy is just going out, and that costs us money. Awesome. This is where it gets gross. So, should have mentioned, need to find that M dot, that mass flow rate out. So I found this research paper, super cool. I consulted with Professor David Schmidt. He's got a PhD and he actually has one of those like joke Nobel Prizes, which is pretty cool. He did like anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna tell it was pretty cool. He did like a calculation of like why shower curtains billow in the wind. And he won the like joke Nobel Prize of the year. So internationally recognized for that. So consulted with him on like how the heck to do this because I've just taken undergrad fluids. I don't really know much. Thankfully, there was a guy in 2006 that like set up a laboratory experiment in exactly this on like how to model the flow from an open window based on temperature differences. Easy peasy. That's a bit of a picture of what we got going on here. You can see the flow coming in at the top and out at the bottom. Easy peasy. So we get to this really gross equation. It looks scary, but we actually know what all these terms are. So we got like 2G, that's gravity, divided by, and then every time you see P, that's like the density of the air at a different temperature. We can just look that up. And then that HT, that's like there's like slightly different areas where the flow is coming in and coming out just because the density is different. And the way we find that is just like using the density. So we actually have everything we need to solve this equation. Eagle-eyed of you will see that this is volumetric flow rate. So you have to multiply by density again. So basically all that matters is we like Google what the density is of air at different temperatures and like we got our answer for this. So yeah, now we have our M dot, we can figure out the energy going out at any second. Everyone good so far?
Oh yeah, this is totally intuitive.
Trivial. So now we got to find money. So we know the flux out of one window at a moment, like energy wise. So the flux is like per second. So you multiply by 3,600 to get flux per hour. What did I do? I took 8 hours over the course of 60 days, just kind of saying, okay, December and February, it's pretty chilly on campus. That's about what's happening. And then I just started with like, I wanted to model the easiest way to do it. I didn't want to like put anything into a simulation. I just wanted to do it on a piece of paper and call it a day. So I took the towers in Southwest. There's like about 17 rooms on a floor, 20 floors-ish that have people on them. And I just multiplied it by a half because I was like, whatever, it's not everyone that has their window open. Got a survey coming up in a second that's pretty cool. But that's what I used. And then you have to convert to freedom units because everyone in the US uses BTU for some reason. And then just multiply that by dollar amount and we have an answer. And it's way lower than I was thinking. So that sucks. But at this point, if anyone's like done research papers, you know how your like final draft is like final draft _2_3_final _final. This number is one of those many version 7 finals. So what did I do wrong? Completely neglected
Wait,
weight.
can you go back and
Yeah.
let us absorb?
The other one.
This one.
Yes, please.
How do we get those numbers?
Which numbers?
The ones on the screen, not this one, the next slide.
Keeps switching.
Oh, sorry. There we go.
It just takes a sec.
So we had the energy flow rate out from the previous slide. So we know what that is. We did the like wonky integral thing that gives us mass flow rate. So then we multiply that by the specific heat of air multiplied by the temperature difference. It showed up on the slide. I think I assumed like a 40-degree Fahrenheit temperature difference because like if it's like 30 out at night and about 70 in the dorms, the thought is that if it's like much lower than that, people would close their windows. So we know that it's like about that much in there. So we have the energy out of one open window based on the geometry of a window in Southwest. That is in units of watts, which is joules per second. So we multiply by the number of seconds in an hour just to make it easy. So that's why we multiply by 3,600. And then we're looking for the total number of hours. So I was saying whatever, people have their windows open for 8 hours over the course of 60 days. And that gives us the total heat flux out of one window over the course of 60 days. And then I was multiplying by the total number of windows that there are in the 5 towers in Southwest. And then just like converting to energy. I didn't show the like actual conversion for that, but you convert it to million BTU and multiply by $12 is how much it costs to get that.
It's the next slide that I'm curious about.
Sorry.
No, you're good. That was very thorough. Thank you.
So that's
And that $12 is the natural gas.
That's what I'm
cost?
curious about, those two numbers.
Yeah. That's a question of, so that $12 is actually the exact energy density of methane. So it's like assuming 100% efficiency, it's about $12. It's realistically probably closer to 18. And then the tons of CO2 is just based on the emission factor. So like when you burn a hydrocarbon, it's just like some carbon with a bunch of hydrogens on it, you have to add in oxygen as well. So you emit, I think it's 2.75 kilograms of carbon dioxide per kilogram of methane that you burn. So that's how I arrived at that number. And the total energy, like we know how much energy is in a bit of propane or methane, sorry. My senior design project, we use propane. But so we know how much energy we're using. So then we just multiply that by the emission factor to get the tons of CO2.
And why do you think something went wrong?
Completely neglected wind. So the the paper that I found that was like modeling where that image is from actually, the maximum velocity of the flow that they found was I think 0.4 meters per second, and like a 30-mile-an-hour gust of wind, which is quite reasonable in the Southwest Wind Tunnel. It could be, it's like 13.4 meters per second roughly. And if we look at the mass flow rate equation, that's density times area, which, that stays constant times the velocity. So the like instantaneous mass flow rate during a gust of wind can be, 30 times higher. And then also I looked at just like, because I was curious, I looked up like the average wind speed in February and it's about 10 miles an hour, which is like about 5 meters per second. So like 12 times higher on average, just completely neglecting that. Also fans that people have like outside of wind, that is just a continuous mass flow rate that's far higher than buoyancy driven flow, which is all the other math I was doing. So long story short, made absolutely massive assumptions because I do not have a PhD in computational fluid dynamics, which sucks. Yeah. Completely
neglected all of that. And as I mentioned, that $12 per million BTU is like assuming 100% efficiency heat transfer from generator to steam, which like, no, but just engineering special, we'll call it 12. And that's the number I had, so I didn't want to just artificially inflate it. So on the right there is a picture of me trying to get a better number. What I did here is, so here I was trying to figure out like a super rough ballpark of including that wind. So the basic thought that went into this is like the pressure in the room is not like blowing up massively. So we know that there's the same mass flow rate in and out at any given point in time. We take the equation for that, which is, sorry for all the non-engineers in the room, this probably sucks. So we can cancel some terms. Basically, we find the ratio of the densities, which can inform us the ratio of the height where the flow is going in and out. And from there, we can get the mass flow rate because we know the velocity into the room, and found that it's like about 15 times higher-ish than what it is just naturally. And then I think I multiplied that by 1/4 because the wind is only ever going to be blowing on one side at a time. And then if it comes in at an angle, don't worry about it. And anyway, sine and theta, I did stuff. And so that number, it's a little questionable how I got here. There was a little more math that I did in the back end, but like that number is probably much closer to the true value than the 40,000 that I found. So over $100,000 in like heat, energy, just like leaving the building, correlating to about 600 tons of carbons. And then, so that was the Southwest Towers, and then across campus, obviously there's like 13,000-ish rooms on campus. So the number gets a lot bigger.
And that's per year?
Yeah.
For December and February.
It's over 2 months, right? 60 days. December, February.
Yeah, the heat only comes
December.
on in like mid-October. And like personally, it didn't get too hot in my dorm until it was like actually like pretty cold out. I've been talking with like some of the energy engineers, and there's different ways that they set the temperature. And it's actually driven a lot by the external temperature. So there's like a higher setting when it gets colder. So for me at least, that's when the problem really arose. And when the temperature difference is smaller, like the energy loss is significantly less. So I was kind of just focused on like the coldest parts of the year. But yes, it would be a little bit higher than that, including a broader range. Solution time.
Yes.
Thermostat. Pretty simple. So this does exist in most of the buildings on campus. I apologize time-wise. So this does exist in a lot of buildings on campus, but the problem is that a lot of the thermostats are just in individual rooms. So, and because they're steam systems, they're very slow to like react to changes. So what will happen is it gets too hot. Students in those rooms with the thermostats that are controlling the whole building will open their window because it's hot. And then the thermostat is just reading an artificially low temperature and like blasting that to the rest of the building. I did a quick tour of a few, like Washington and a bunch of places in Central, with one of our energy engineers and some electricians to get like a better idea of like what we can do to tweak things. Turns out it's super expensive to do anything to these buildings physically. So what we're looking to do, we're going to do a pilot program this winter where we're going to make some changes to some of the controls and measure the difference in our energy spending at this upcoming spring semester in those buildings compared to last year. We're just going to drop the water temperature that gets circulated through the building and do like a continuous like student feedback survey. So we're going to email everyone in the building where we do this pilot program. We're going to say, hey, we're making some changes to the heating. You know, if you want, sign up and report the comfort level in your room every day during like a 1 to 2 week trial period. And so they're going to be telling us we're going to make small incremental changes to the water temperature and kind of look at like, okay, when we do that, do people suddenly say it's freezing in the room, or is it actually more comfortable? And if the water temperature is lower, our energy bill is lower. So we're finding kind of that like sweet spot where people are not yet reporting that like, oh my God, it's, you know, my coffee's freezing in the mug, and our energy bill is significantly lower. And that's it.
Can you hold it?
Okay.
Thank you. Not even gonna introduce Margaret. He's my Margaret. Okay.
There will be no math. I hold a PhD in Renaissance studies, so I think I'm smart, but I don't do math. Okay, so here we are. We are Eliza. Wave your hand so people know who you are. Okay, Eliza Bassler is a Renaissance of the Earth Fellow at the Kinney Center, where she's playing a central role in our project, drawing together our outdoor laboratory, our rare book library, and the UMass Pollinator Lab. Eliza is a PhD candidate in the Department of Environmental Conservation, where she studies bees in forests, which I just think is cool. I don't know why I haven't thought about that. I'm always like dealing with the gnats. She is the coordinator of a Bee Campus USA at UMass, where she enhances pollinator habitats and engages the community in pollinator education and stewardship. As our Rowe Fellow, Eliza is documenting the pollinators buzzing around our Kinney Center meadows. Drawing on our library collections, she is researching the work of early modern naturalists to explore conjunctions between Renaissance methods of observing the natural world and the entomological techniques that she's using today.
Thank you, Marjorie, for that lovely introduction. And thank you all for inviting me to this and for organizing it. It's been really lovely to learn from you all today. And thanks for staying to the end to hear this last talk. My talk is focused on my Renaissance of the Earth Fellowship work. And oops, does that, it takes a moment to, okay. And my work with the Renaissance of the Earth Fellowship is really looking at human-insect relationships across time. And the first two words from my title come from these terms that were coming up in a lot of my early modern readings about insects. So most pernicious and never idle. And I'd like to start by introducing you to some of the insects that are focus of both my PhD research and my work as a Renaissance of the Earth Fellow, which are native bees. So many of us may be most familiar with the non-native European honeybee, which is a domesticated species brought from Europe to North America by colonists. But as it turns out, we actually have thousands of native bees that are native to North America, and they come in a wide diversity of colors, shapes, sizes, and life histories, like you can see here. We do even have green bees on campus. And worldwide, there are about 20,000 species. My bullets will come up in a second, maybe. And what's really important about these species is they've co-evolved with the flora and fauna of North America. So not only are they important in agricultural systems for increasing crop yields, but they also support our natural systems by pollinating the plants there and helping them reproduce. And here in Massachusetts, we have about 400 native bee species and counting. And I want to draw your attention to this bee in the lower left here. This is the rusty patch bumblebee. This is a species that we know used to occur in Amherst. There are specimens on campus in the entomological collection from Amherst. This species is now on the federal endangered species list, and it's gone extinct in Massachusetts. So these incredibly important and beautiful species are facing a number of human threats that are really urgent. And that includes climate change, that includes habitat loss, pesticides, and diseases that are being spread by humans moving bees around. And so when I came to the Renaissance of the Earth Fellowship, I sort of had two big questions in mind. One is, how have attitudes towards insects changed over time? Because as a conservationist, conservation only really works if people care, right? And insects can be a little bit of a hard sell for a lot of good reasons, right? A lot of insects, can transmit diseases. They can be really serious pests. But if we stand a chance of conserving these really important species, we need to figure out how we can cultivate a caring relationship with insects and nature today. And I was curious in tracing sort of the history of our attitudes towards insects today through Western European early modern texts about insects. So I began reading some of the texts at the Renaissance Center, and a couple of themes came up in my readings of these early modern texts. One is that insects are often being talked about as resources. This is still true today. We think a lot about honeybees, silkworms, cochineal, which is a kind of scale insect that produces a red pigment. But even more than that, I was seeing tons of references to them as pests, right? We often have a lot of really negative associations with insects. And that's because in this early modern period, many of the texts I was reading were written for farmers and gardeners who were dealing with pests in their day-to-day lives and who had these really close interactions with insects. But what kind of surprised me is there was also a lot of instances of early modern people thinking about insects as models for human society. So in a minute, a quote from Henry V is going to pop up. And this is kind of a quote that demonstrates this. And it goes, "Obedience, for so work the honeybees, creatures that by a rule in nature teach the act of order to a peopled kingdom." And while this isn't necessarily a model of society that I think we should be looking to today by any means, I think it does show that they were seeing themselves in parallel with the insect world, and they thought there were things to learn from insects. And so I think there's sort of a lot of interesting humanizing elements to the language that was showing up in these early modern texts. So I mentioned that insects as pests were one of the sort of major references to insects that I was seeing. This is one such quote from Bradley, written in 1731, where he's talking about an outbreak of caterpillars on a turnip farm. And what stood out to me about this quote is he's actually talking about biocontrol and birds coming to eat the caterpillars on this turnip farm. And that's actually still one of the most sustainable ways to manage pests that we have today, which is by using the natural predators that are in the environment and creating an environment that supports those predators rather than using pesticides. And the other thing I'd like to point out about this quote is that he talks about birds as friends rather than enemies. And while I think I would like to consider birds my friends, and maybe many of us would, that's not often the way we as scientists talk about birds today, right? So again, I think there's this kind of interesting humanizing language when they're talking about the natural world. In 1731, Richard Bradley was also already seeing the effects of anthropogenic change on insects. So in this quote, he talks about a time where he was in London and he saw what I believe, based on his description, is like a swarm of moths that was suffocated by pollution from coal in front of the Royal Society. And so there's, again, sort of two things that I like about this quote. One is that insects have long been these sort of indicators of environmental change and these really sensitive indicators for us on how our environment is changing. I also really like that he used the word suffocated, right? That's really visceral, and it stands kind of in contrast to maybe some of the more scientific ways we talk about declines in insects. So how do we cultivate a caring relationship with insects and nature today, and how can the past be a model? I think one thing we can learn from is by looking at the humanizing language that I found in some of these texts. Early modern peoples had an interesting way of understanding themselves in parallel or in sympathy with nature, and they saw themselves in the natural world in a way that you could see in their language, which I think establishes a kind of different connection to the natural world. They also were observing on a day-to-day basis and interacting with insects, maybe a lot more than some of us do today. And so as a Renaissance of the Earth Fellow, I also wanted to go out into the Renaissance Center's 28-acre meadow and see what kind of insects were there. So over the summer, I took my fantastic undergraduate technicians and we went, and in just a little over an hour of sampling, we documented 15 pollinator species. And I want to introduce you to one of them today. Photo's going to take a second to load, but the bee that I'm going to introduce you to today is called the hairy banded mining bee, and it is a pollen specialist on goldenrod, which means that its offspring can only eat pollen from goldenrod, which is the yellow flowers that you see it sitting on. And to give this bee a little more of a human face, I often like to tell people that this bee has eyebrows. So they're a little hard to see in this photo, but hopefully you can, yeah, my cursor's not in the right place. There we go. Hopefully you can see sort of the area that I'm circling. It has this patch of yellow hairs that runs along the inside of its eye. And you can take my word for it. If you look at it up close, it looks a lot like eyebrows. So to sort of tie this all together, my challenge for you all is to take a page from some of these early modern writers and get to know the insect species that we have here on campus. And there's already a lot of really amazing work going on campus to try and make the campus a place where people can connect with nature, a place that's a little bit wilder. One of these efforts that I'm lucky enough to be a part of is the Bee Campus USA initiative. It's a national initiative that UMass joined last year. And as part of joining this effort, they are committing to making more pollinator habitats, reducing pesticide usage, and also educating people about pollinators. And so one of the ways in which we're trying to get to know the pollinators that are here on campus is through an iNaturalist project. If you scan this QR code, you can help us with this project by downloading the iNaturalist app. And what you'll see is that we've documented so far 359 pollinator species on campus. So campus is supporting an incredible amount of biodiversity. And by knowing who's here, we can do a little bit of a better job stewarding these really important species. I also want to point out that we only have 292 observers. So please download iNaturalist next spring. Help us take some more photos, because 359 is pretty cool, but like if we could get more people observing, that number is going to go way, way up. And one of the places where you could observe some of these amazing insects on campus is the Renaissance Center Meadow. And working as a fellow, I have learned a lot about sort of how important this space is on campus and for the broader community. Being in that meadow, you see people from the area coming to walk their dogs, having conversations, having picnics. You see classes visiting the meadow. They're there to learn about mammals and plants. I brought my class to learn about pollinators. And so one of my sort of bigger questions for you all is, how can we bring this model elsewhere on campus? How can we make more spaces for people to connect with nature on campus and work to create a wilder UMass? What if there was a Renaissance Center Meadow somewhere closer to Central Campus? What might some of these spaces look like? That is all I have for today, and I'd love to take questions at this time.
I think what I'm gonna do is officially wrap it up and then also welcome questions. So you could even stay right there.
Sure.
But can you get to like that?
No, yeah.
Oh no, you can stay right there. Oh, okay. I'm gonna just so everybody can see. Thank you everybody for coming today. Katie's gonna put up on the slide. If you're interested in these kinds of programmings, we're trying to do this more. We're trying to showcase the work that's happening. Can you go to the next one? If you aren't already within the School of Earth and Sustainability, if you aren't affiliated with us yet, you might not be getting our communications. We have an amazing, talented communicator, Katie Quigley, who is helping to reach out across tell the stories about the incredible work that's coming here so that we can counter the greenwashing accusations that we're receiving. This is to sign up for a newsletter. We also have a YouTube channel. We are just starting this out, but the idea that there's incredible work happening on campus, we want to make it accessible to a broader audience is our goal. And so we will be posting this on YouTube. We'll share it out with you. And then can you go to the next slide too? What's the last thing? I think there's one more thing I need to tell you. I can't remember what it is. It takes a second. It's fine. So this is it. Okay, great. So you can email us. This is our website. This is how to find us. And really the opportunities that we were talking about today, the intent is to elevate them, to make more of them, and to really advertise and make sure that we're connecting people in all the right ways. So thank you so much for being here. The presenters, I think, are here for a few minutes, and then we're going to go and feed them, so there'll be more mingling. And SES will broadcast out after this event, so we'll share the YouTube video, and anyone who had calls to action will combine them together. So thank you so much for being here, and then it
sounds like maybe we have a few moments.
Yeah, you can have questions.
People
Yeah.
have questions. Yeah.
I was really curious about that King Henry V quote about the bees.
Yeah.
And I though I understand like the implications of it, I would be interested. I don't really know the biological timeline that we have regarding bees and our knowledge of them, but I wonder how his thoughts around it would change if he kind of if the narrative of like the queen bee was more present.
Yeah, right, they were talking about it as a king rather than
Yes.
a queen, so there's definitely some sexism in there,
Right.
right? Yeah, and it would be interesting to try and maybe make a sort of modern parallel
Yeah.
in a different sort of way.
Yeah.
Good question. Yeah, Lena.
Thanks, Eliza. That's awesome. And I, you know, I've been on iNaturalist for years, and I just opened up the app and was trying to find the Bee Campus USA project.
Yeah.
But honestly, the number of the thousands of observations that are on campus are like overwhelming my phone. But how do we search for the Bee Campus
If you just search Bee Campus UMass, it should come up.
Okay.
And we will be happy to circulate like information out to
Yeah, I
everyone
can
so
send a
we
link
all
to the
have that.
project as well, so you can look at that.
Awesome. I love that you're doing that.
Thanks, Lena.
Any other questions? So I cut off Matt, so Matt wasn't able to get his questions. Any other questions to the students?
I have a question from new to you. One, I was just curious of your majors and grades.
We're
Real
both
quick.
sustainable community development majors and we're
Okay.
seniors.
Both seniors, all right. I'm curious about use. You know, you had some numbers about volunteers and things like that. Having gone here and things like that, and working with students, I do know it's a big campus, and I've heard students Uber to other parts of the campus, which boggles my mind, to pick up mail that's in a different place. And so I'm just wondering, although you're in the most dense part of campus for living, which is better than somewhere else, have you seen students physically walking from other parts to get to you? And this is not a comment on new to you in the retail store. It's a comment on students at a big campus.
Yes. We have had students, I've had a couple students want to get kind of a larger item that's awkward to carry, and they've asked if they could borrow a rolly bin to push it up towards Central. I've had at least 2 students do that this year. So they're coming from all around. There was one student I talked to who was from Sylvan. So the students are coming from all around, which is really exciting to see.
And then I have one follow-up question, having lived in Southwest. Are you where the Munchie store was? Like that ground floor, not the lower?
Yeah,
Like,
second floor, not the first.
I kept staring at it, and my memory was jogged from 30 years ago. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
I have a comment. I just wanted to, I feel like there's a parallel between Matt and Eliza. I just want to compliment you from working in facilities. I see the impact you guys have on my colleagues in facilities, where it's kind of every once in a while, someone like you comes along with the expertise and the passion to create change on campus, and you get the attention of the people working on campus. For you, it's grounds. For you, it's maintenance, right? That manages the energy on campus in our buildings. And you really get their attention, and you start to change the culture within those departments on campus, right? For you, it's grounds, like the amount of change you've created just in this short period of time working with Axel and Todd. And
Those folks are amazing.
they're amazing. They're amazing, but they don't listen to other students that that in the same way that they listen to you. So I just commend you guys for bringing your passion and expertise to my colleagues.
Clarity question from Matt, because I think you're at the end, so it went by quick. Are you telling me that in certain dorms, a student controls the thermostat for the entire building?
A student does not, sorry. So, yeah, I guess I had to.
It sounded like they have a thermostat, you open a window and it changes. I was like, oh my, I can see that happening? But, okay.
I guess like indirectly, yes. So like the way that it works, so sorry, let me plug. I did a survey of the whole campus, by the way, and got like 2,000 responses. So I wasn't killing it. So it wasn't just like making up random buildings and stuff. The ones that I wanted to focus on were the towers, just because they're the biggest, so like biggest energy bill. Those have 8 thermostats, like total, and like thermostat, not that like you can change the temperature, but it's reading the temperature and plugging it back to like a controller in the basement. Just the issue is they're in corner rooms on like floor 13 and 14. The thought is that normalizes for like if you have sun on one side, wind on the other, you can adjust in each quadrant kind of like accordingly. It's just like it's inaccurate for a few reasons. One of them being that like for like, they're saying that like there's 8 thermostats total, so you have a good average of like multiple readings, but realistically you get like 4. Because the sun and the wind are going to be affecting 4 at a time, or sorry, so you have 2 like readings total. And like I said, people will open the windows, so like they're not touching the thermostat, but they open the window and then it's whatever 65 in their room, so it blasts heat for that entire quadrant. And then in Central and Orchard Hill, they do actually have radiators in the room with like knobs on them they can turn. But the valves for those are like plastic. They're like $6 a pop. And for any non-engineers, stay with me. If you blow steam at plastic for 30 years, it can melt. So,
Good, I follow.
So basically what the issue is there is that like students don't know that they can just do a maintenance request and like later that day they'll come and replace the valve and it'll work. So like part 2 of the pilot that's less exciting is stickers, the QR code, and a little like radiator not working, like fill out a maintenance request. So sorry, maintenance, you're probably gonna get swamped in the spring, but then going forward, that's not gonna be an ongoing thing. It was actually ridiculous. Like Brooks, I think, was the worst reported building where 95% of students report having their windows open in the winter. That was from like about 100 respondents. And they have radiators in the room.
Yeah.
Like, so there's a lot of stuff we can do to like improve that